Inside, Pizarro Golazo. Pizarro Golazo. Here's the goal scorer, Morgan. And he's done it again. Lewis Morgan with his second of the match. Higuain will have the goal. And he's framed the top 90. It's a sensational first goal for Gonzalo Higuain.
Woo! Super Draft Thursday, baby. It's times like these that make me happy to be an Inter Miami fan, and in general, a sports fan. I love draft day.
Today was fire, man. I don't know about everybody listening to the podcast, but Jay and myself just happened to work together. It seems like the day oneers out there know that, but if you didn't know, we do work together, and guess what? It got a little rowdy around 2:20-ish when the picks were coming in.
It was some fun times in the office, but thank you everyone for joining us. We are the Inter Miami podcast with the best intro in the game, if I do say so myself. My name is Jay Kington, alongside always my co-host and halfway decent friend.
You better watch your damn mouth, Jay.
Mr. Alex Papa George. Happy early birthday to Alex. His birthday is on, I believe, is it the 24th?
Wow, dude, you're a better friend than I thought, dude. Right. You were actually spot on with that, brother. But it is my birthday. I didn't know that you were going to remember that.
I don't remember many things, but luckily I got that one right.
Luckily.
Don't ask me again next year. I might give you a different date.
Definitely hit me on the 25th. But yeah, appreciate you, Jay. I am enjoying this weekend down in actually the Venetian Causeway. I'm having a little bit of a getaway over at the Standard Hotel with a girl and chilling at the pool, doing some jacuzzi time, maybe some fun time too. But
thanks for specifying is with a girl.
Anyway.
But we do have a special treat for everyone today. If you followed us last season, kind of one of the first interviews that we did was with some of the supporters groups. And guess what, buddy?
What?
We're doing it again.
No way.
So why don't you tell them who the order of how this one will roll out?
Special treat for everyone. In case you haven't been a part of the podcast before, Jay and myself laugh at every one of our jokes. So get used to it. Anyway, today we are stoked. We are pumped. We are excited to go ahead and welcome the Siege to the Inter Miami podcast. We have a couple buddies swinging by talking about Siege stuff and whatnot, but that is going to be a little bit later down the pod. There has been some hot news that is swirling around the team. Jay?
There has been quite a bit of news, including obviously the Super Draft that was today, but also some organizational shakeups that we have. But we're going to run through these again. We're going to cover 4 supporters groups unless a 5th one pops up. We're talking about the Siege today, Vice City, Southern Legion, and our homies from up north in the 561, none other than the Northern Pack. But before we get into all of that, we do have some special news to share with everyone.
Super special news. Actually, 2 pieces of special news. First off, man, this just brings excitement, Jay. This just brings super excitement. Jay and I started this podcast out of Jay's guest room in his house to see what this thing has blown up to. All the thanks to y'all in the world, literally in the world. But
it's crazy. Now we're in a penthouse in the Porsche Tower.
Yeah, it's wild. Wild. We can see everybody down there. Hey, I'm just kidding, y'all. But anyway, this brings us super pleasure to announce that we have a contributor to the Inter Miami podcast. He has been a day oneer with us, literally probably since the first episode. But Mr. Than Harrington is joining the crew of the Inter Miami podcast. He's going to be a contributor to the pod. He's going to be keeping it real. We're actually going to move off of audio purely, which is kind of our second big notice of news. But Than is going to be instrumental in really the next piece of breaking news for everyone that we're going to go ahead and announce. And Jay, I'm not going to steal your thunder, but go ahead and tell everybody else and welcome Than like you should. But
yes, welcome, Than. Actually, you know what? Let's have some applause. It might be a little too loud. I forgot to lower that a little bit.
That's all right. We're still working out the
Yeah, no,
kinks.
Than's been a day wonder. I sent out a message to the Inter Miami fan club of just send me your address and we're going to send you a little care package. And he was one of the initial ones that responded. And we sent him up there, some stickers of that we had and some other supporters groups that we had collected as well. He is a listener and someone that's interacted with us since day one. And then I don't know how it started, but we somehow messaged back and forth or something, and we started playing FIFA, and he's someone I talk to almost every day now. He is not just a listener. He's honestly a good friend. Very happy to have him on. He will be covering the academy in Fort Lauderdale CF specific will be his focus, but we are very happy to expand the Inter Miami podcast family with Dan Harrington, and we do have some others coming on. So again, if it's something that you would be interested in, reach out to us, interact with us, and we take care of our own. Another thing that we're super excited about is a new initiative, really, right? A new channel to get more of the Inter Miami podcast. And this is going to be dropping in tandem really with this podcast, and that we will be releasing our first ever newsletter, which will be content that will be in the show and some additional content that will not be in the show. We do not always cover stuff as, we talk about like MLS as a whole, Fort Lauderdale CF or the Academy on every show. So this will be a platform to really get the full Inter Miami experience, all the news, all the details will be able to be covered not only on the show, but also with the newsletter. And I'll tell you what, shit's gonna be hot. Link is going to be in all of our social media accounts. If you can't find it, well, you may want to look yourself in the mirror, figure out why you can't find us on social media, because we made it very, very easy. But then hit us up on social media for the link if you can't find it. But this is going to be exclusive content, deeper thoughts, news around the league, videos, audios. I'm sure Alex is going to upload pictures of himself like he always does.
Bro, you see this new haircut?
Yeah. You know my thoughts on that.
Jay, I got to keep it real with the listeners right now, bro. So I got to put you on blast, man. What you just listened to is the fact that Jay was reading off this script for the first time in this show's history. And if you couldn't imagine, shit was obvious.
Well, you should probably call my mom and dad right now and let them know that I can, in fact, read, because they have not believed that fact for a while.
Anyways, Jay was saying we are coming live with the newsletter. This shit's going to be hot. It's going to be popping, and we're going to go ahead and have Than contribute on the newsletter. So if you guys are wondering where the hell is Than, he's going to be on the pod in a few weeks. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. But he's going to go ahead and be sponsored and recognized as a contributor on the newsletter that is coming out to everybody.
And dropping fire on the Twitter sphere as well.
He is dropping fire on the Twitter sphere as well. We have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Facebook, we have a podcast, we have a newsletter now.
We're looking for a 13-year-old listener who crushes TikTok. And that's apparently the platform of the future per the news.
That's all you got for us?
I have no idea about TikTok. I don't know.
Have you ever been on TikTok?
I've never been on TikTok.
No, you haven't ever
I've
seen
watched
a video?
TikTok videos.
Okay.
That people send me.
But you've never made a TikTok.
I've never made a TikTok,
Okay.
nor do I have the app. So I don't know how it works. I know it's like a younger generation thing. And apparently it's like, it's kind of big.
I mean, who knows, man? It's bleeding generations, dude. Don't give it a shot, dude. Give it a shot. But anyway.
R.I.P. MySpace.
Big shout out to Than for joining the club. But anyway, Jay, outside of all this cool news that's going on in the Inter Miami podcast, we had some pretty big news happen around the team here, bud.
We did. So after an interesting saga, I don't know how to say that. I don't want to.
This is messy breakup.
Mr. Coach Alonso, I'm not laughing at you. I promise. I understand this was probably a very confusing part of your life because you thought you were fired, but you weren't fired, and you were then the head coach, and then you saw rumors, and then you weren't the head coach, and you weren't really sure if you're the head coach, and then it turns out you're not the head coach, and now we have a new head coach, which would be none other than David Beckham's teammate, but Phil Neville will be the new manager slash head coach for anyone that doesn't know soccer terminology, who actually played with David Beckham at Manchester United and continued with Everton, but one of the well-known figures in English football, man, and now he will be taking the reins and guiding this little pony to the championships.
Yeah, and before we get into Mr. Phil over here, I think that, let's give Mr. Diego his time that he has deserved, and it's about a minute right now.
That was kind of savage. I'm sorry.
That's fire, dude. You keep that up.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, Jay and I have been talking about potential coaching change, young DP and Pellegrini changes, but we wouldn't have imagined that a coaching change would have happened this quick. And honestly, to Jay's point, and I had alluded to it, actually, I just blatant out said it. This has all the makings of a very, very messy breakup. I mean, shit, man. We got a guy coming out of the meeting not knowing if he's fired or if he still has a job. Confusion on the media front to explain to everybody who's interested on what the heck is going on. And then he thinks he has a job, no longer to find himself let go a week to 2 weeks later for none other than, David Beckham's old chum, Phil Neville.
Old chum, you say?
Old chum, you say?
But no, this is very, very interesting because Beckham has not been able to really be in the country at all due to the coronavirus situation. He has now come back into the country, and he even played some, a little bit with the academy, probably passing on some knowledge, but also showing him that, hey, he may have some gray hairs, but he can still score them buckets, as they say in the sport of soccer.
3-pointer.
3 touchdowns. But, I just, you kind of get this feeling that, like, I feel like, I guess we'll because there's been a lot of changes. I mean, I guess we'll focus on Phil right now, but, like, the Paul McDonough situation, and this is kind of hand in hand because I don't think Paul McDonough and Diego were, like, David's choices, right? Paul had a pedigree of expansions with some success, specifically at Atlanta United. But he came over here, he didn't really do, as good of a job. And then we get into last year, as you can recall, when we were trying to select a head coach, right? And there are many big names that were associated with Inter Miami. And it turns out that, like, actually none of them ended up being with the team, and it was kind of a curveball out of left field with Diego Alonso being picked as the head coach. So this is probably like, I think there's something to be said that David's coming in with a little bit more hands-on approach, and we can credit probably Phil Neville. I don't know how much we can credit, like, the Chris Henderson replacement for McDonough, because Chris Henderson is a kind of a staple of the MLS, if you will, coming from Seattle. But regardless, as much as uncertainty as there kind of is around this, like, will Phil Neville be a successful coach in the MLS? We will see. But I feel a sense of relief that David Beckham has kind of got in there to start making these moves.
Listen, Jay, I don't know what the hell you just said, but I'm going to break it down real quick. Phil is David's guy. Diego was Paul's guy. And that's the reality of the situation. I think that the issue was that David was overseas, unable, not to his, choice, right? Like, he was literally unable to come back to the United States and put his footprint on this club. And I think with that being said, if you look at Paul's history in the clubs that he's been with, he has a reputation for being very, very hands-on, which obviously in some cases serves him very well. Obviously, in other cases, it doesn't serve him very much well. So I think that this was more of a move to bring in David Beckham's people, right? Phil Neville is someone that he's known for 20 years. He's won championships. He's known this guy. He's he's a part owner of the same group with the same club, which we'll get into a little bit
Southford
later.
City, right?
Exactly. So he has a deep-rooted relationship with Phil Neville. And I guess that's really the systemic, kind of question that a lot of people have, right? Like, is this just David's buddy, or is this a real master of football who's going to take this club to the next level? Well, the reality is only time will play, right?
Well, you look at his buddies, though. I mean, you got like Zidane crushed at Real Madrid. Pirlo's doing well at Juventus. So his buddies that he played with have turned out to be good coaches.
Well, you look at his buddies too, right? But you also look at him wanting to have a bigger impact on this club. And I think with the addition of Phil, I think he's going to have his ear a little bit more, right? Diego Alonso, not only, on a communication standpoint, would have his challenges with David Beckham, but also the fact that he wasn't here. This is someone who's going to be centralized in the same location. They have a prior relationship with. This is someone who, they can have their battles with behind the door as it's closed and walk out actually better men, right? And better positioning of the club as a totality, right?
No, I 100% agree with that.
So I think that like this move, and obviously it has a controversy, and the reality is, folks, is this move is going to be judged 2 years down the line. We can sing his praises and talk about him all as well, and we're going to get into a couple of those. But the reality is that the coach is going to be judged on the wins, loss, and championships.
If it can last 2 years, that'd be phenomenal. But these Miami fans, they are vicious, so they expect, results basically right away. I feel like we kind of got shafted a little bit, right? Because McDonough was, he was a sporting director for Orlando City, and they just made their first playoff appearance this season. What was that, 6 or 7 years where they weren't? And then, we, thankfully kind of snuck our way into the play-in round, but once McDonough left Orlando, he went to Atlanta, and then Atlanta just like balled out instantly, right? So it's kind of, what have you done for me now versus, what have you done in the past, or what have you done for me lately, whatever that saying may be. I feel like we were sold on a good showing in Atlanta, thinking that it was going to be concrete. And if we took Paul McDonough as our sporting director, then we would have the same results as Atlanta in our inaugural season. But that's not the case. We got pretty much what happened to Orlando City. Right. So it was not what everyone was expecting. But now, kind of playing the flip side, now we're getting pieces in place that I think a lot of us were expecting initially as the organization started to form.
Listen, the hiring of Paul McDonough, I think, was more to do with what everybody was thinking, right? The glitz and the glamour of Miami, right? Well, check it out, fellas and ladies. Can't forget about the ladies, but
be inclusive.
We are in Fort Lauderdale. It's not Miami right now. And I think that Paul McDonough was a part of a star-studded cast that we were all envisioning walking down Hollywood Boulevard as some magical, movie premiere with, the best players in the world coming down and joining up teams with David Beckham and Inter Miami and blah, 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 right? That shit ain't happening, right?
I thought you were talking about like Hollywood, Florida, like Hollywood Boulevard. Hollywood.
No.
I was like, why would that be the one?
No, that would not be the one. No. But no, I'm talking about the West Coast of like the red
carpet
like getting rolled out.
Hollywood.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. And it just wasn't simply the fact. And I think that from the start, which actually brings me to a question, Jay, we obviously saw a disconnect on the pitch all season long. Yeah. Like clearly, right? The amount of talent that we have, and it's a team like Nashville, who's an expansion club just like ourselves in the same year, moves way farther and obviously way more advanced than us right now. But the question is that, do you think that Paul really kind of took the reins himself and kind of took it a little bit away from David, as David was obviously not in this country, probably couldn't have as much of an influence on the club as he wanted to? But do you think that Paul kind of took this direction the way that he wanted to, and David was like, hey, listen, man, this is not the direction that I want to go in, and that's where kind of the feud or the root of the issue is?
Well, it's tough, right? So David's abroad. You got, like Jorge Mas is still here, and Paul McDonough is still here, and they're the major ones pulling the strings. I don't think they're like necessarily like
Paul McDonough isn't here.
Well, so but I'm saying like at that time, Paul McDonough was here with Jorge Mas stateside with Beckham being in the UK. And I think that, being away and only being able to be on phone calls and not in those kind of, in-person discussions, like I definitely think that did play some sort of point. I don't think that Paul McDonough necessarily like ran rogue. I think the organization saw what he did with Atlanta United and then relied on those results too much and didn't really have a contingency plan if, the players weren't aligning with what they were envisioning. But also at the same time, it's a very difficult discussion to have or to pin down, because a lot of the fingers will be pointed at Diego Alonso, right? We have the talent, we have Matuidi, we have Gonzalo Higuain, we have Rodolfo Pizarro, we have Luis Morgan. LGP was a stud defender. Nico Fagal highly touted, and we had some like MLS veterans too, like a Will Trapp, like an Agudelo or Uyoya, and even Jay Chapman. You go through our line, like we drafted and picked people that had experience, kind of with this like almost blind faith that it would work out. And I just don't think that, a lot of times plans don't go according to change, and if you don't have a backup plan, then you're kind of just stuck with what you have.
Yeah, and obviously change is the only thing that is in life that is certain, right? Like change is the only thing in life that is certain, right? And as you continue to grow and as you continue to develop, like that is the one factor that continues to be in your life. But Jay, I gotta say, man, Phil coming off of some pretty good experience, and we go back to the word change, right? Like, he's been a part of England's women's national team.
Break down his credentials for us.
1,000%. I mean, listen, this guy has played 20 years of some of the top-notch football in the entire world. He has racked up a total of 14 trophies during his time at Manchester United, including 6 Premier League titles. This is no chum here. 3 FA Cups and 1 UEFA Championship League title. As a head coach, he has led England's women's national team to a 2019 Cup title, as well as qualified for the 2021 Summer Olympics.
Who'd they lose to in the 2019 She Believe Cup?
I'm going to go ahead and probably say America.
You got it right, buddy.
Shocker. But anyway, this is not a guy that we're just bringing off the side of the street. And, he's highly credentialed. Obviously, the biggest or one of the biggest downsides is the fact that he hasn't coached in the MLS. But I think that we're going to kind of get into a little bit more of that and why the value of the asset of Chris Henderson is so important to this puzzle moving forward. Is one of the biggest emphasis is the fact that Phil has not yet participated in Major League Soccer.
Yeah, that is like definitely something to focus on, but international coaches get a diverse group of players to coach. So I think if you can find some success in that, then you have a general kind of foundation to build off, right?
We saw success from Diego Alonso.
We saw a lot of failure. That's something we didn't highlight because we do stay so positive. Like he won the CONCACAF Champions League and then was fired like 6 months later, right? So there is a lot of that we don't see. We could sit here and highlight any coach that you want to email us or send us on social media. Yeah, we can find some positives to talk about it. But I think being realistic, the MLS is not one of the major leagues in the world. We're trying to get there. We're trying to not be the elephant graveyard where European talent comes to die and retire, right? We're trying to elevate that. So it's weird to me to think someone that hasn't coached at a high level before could handle the MLS. There will be some, tweaks and some adjusting, but I think that it's some that they would be comfortable with, in the long term. We're talking 1-2 years. I mean, maybe it takes a half a year or a year to really get a grip, but that second year should be, pretty solid. I mean, you played for Manchester United. Your brother is coached as well. I mean, this is all is football. And to go to the semifinals of the Women's World Cup is not easy. I mean, obviously America consistently has one of the best female soccer teams. The women's national team is an absolute powerhouse. And That's not to say the competition isn't there. There is plenty of competition. So to get to the finals, I think speaks volumes. Now, will it translate? It's so hard to say. It is so hard to say.
Listen, it feels like a old saying here at the Inter Miami podcast, but we don't have a crystal ball, y'all. We don't have a crystal ball, and we're just going to have to watch and find out. It is a 2-year deal that Phil is with the club, but hey, Diego's contract was longer, so if he doesn't step up to the plate, guess what? That probably won't go all the way to 2 years. But anyway, in addition to Phil, we brought on one more huge piece to the puzzle here, and probably was the guy that we should have looked at hiring, honestly, in the first place here. But his name is Mr. Chris Henderson.
They couldn't get him at the time, and now they could, so they did.
Fantastic. Well, honestly, I am thrilled to have him aboard, and it seems
Stoked.
like the rest of the Inter Miami community is absolutely doing backflips right now for this guy to join our club, because this is someone that we need, right? This is someone who has been instrumental in the development of the Seattle Sounders in the MLS. Someone who has been there for damn near 20 years, who knows the idea of longevity and, dare I say, loyalty. And this is someone who understands all the teams around the league, the conference, etc. He's been around the block. This is someone who's going to be able to call people's personal cell phones up and start talking deals before we even know that they're going on. This is someone who is going to take this team to the next level, Jay. This is probably my favorite signing, definitely this offseason, because there's probably only 3, but potentially the entire club's history.
No, this is major. I mean, this is 6.8 ounce baby Jesus right here. This is the chosen one. This is the savior.
6.8.
We're talking about Chris Henderson, right? And I mean, this guy is a stud in the sport. And, not only like fun fact that, he did play for the 2001 Miami Fusion. He did score 3 goals for the club, but he has spent the last 13 seasons with Seattle Sounders as their sporting director. And if you follow the MLS, which if you're listening to this podcast, you either have been following the MLS or you've just been following the MLS for the past year. But this guy is an absolute monster to have in your front office. He has 2 MLS Cups under his belts. 4 Lamar Hunt U.S. Cups, 1 Supporter Shield, 4 U.S. Open Cups, and I can't say just as expected because this is the Super Draft, but this is where we're going to see the signings pick back up, right? So, we did have 10 vacancies. We did miss one last episode. We will correct ourselves in a bit, but we had 10 openings. Patrick Seagrass got signed, and then 3 others with the Super Draft, which we will talk about later. But we kind of thought it was a little weird that there were no signings, that we were letting players go or trading players or keeping them on loan, whatever the situation may be, but there were no acquisitions. And we were kind of wondering, like, why is every other team making acquisitions and we're not? Well, here's why. We were waiting to have a sporting director in place. We did have an interim, I think the title was sporting manager, who was kind of taking over the reins, trying to hold the ship together. But if you're looking for a leader, in the MLS, then Chris Henderson is in the upper echelon. He's on the top shelf of the trophy cabinet. This is the guy that you want. And, I kind of cut you off a little bit before. We did try to get him initially, and they went with Paul McDonough. I think there was something contractually where he wasn't available. So to see us come back now, still realize like this is the guy we want, and we did do through this year, but now we can get him and we acquire him. Like, this is huge. This is not just this year huge. This is huge for the longevity of his tenure with the club. He will pull strings, make decisions that could take us from barely making it into the playoffs in our first season to literally an MLS Cup, potentially in 3 to 4 seasons.
I think you're right. And, it's so wonderful having people who are new to the game of soccer, football, however you want to call it, because we were on this journey together. And, this has been part of the biggest, part of the joys of Jay and myself putting together this podcast is really educating the new folks to this great sport in South Florida. And for me to put this idea of Chris Henderson in your mind so you can create some type of analogy or example of what we're talking about, this is the signing of Pat Riley with the Miami Heat, y'all. This is like the cornerstone of your franchise as stars are rotating through your club. This is the person who is going to continuously have player development through the draft, through the academy, through his relationships in MLS, and build a true powerhouse that we're all looking forward to for years to come, right? This is the guy, right? As there's a Mickey Arison, as David Beckham, there has to be a Pat Riley, and we're hoping this is Chris Henderson.
Chris Henderson is a virus.
Too soon,
a virus
too
that
soon,
you want
bro.
to spread through your organization or your body. He will get involved in almost every facet and will take over this club, and the direction he will give it will be phenomenal. I mean, again, we cannot be lucky enough to have him. It kind of sucks because the first season was like, it is what it is. It feels like a complete restart, but I feel like we're restarting with the pieces that we need. We're going to get a European coach who played with David Beckham. We're going to get one of the best sporting directors in the MLS. And then it's not going to be instantaneous. So we expect to play better this season than we did last season, but it won't be instantaneous. But in a 3 to 5 to 6 year time frame, we could legit be contenders for the MLS Cup or Supporter Shield or both.
Listen, before we get on to some big news that happened, which was the Super Draft, I got to say, Jay, I'm not a big fan of this whole restart word that I keep hearing. And, we'll have the siege on a little bit later. And it was a word of emphasis, to be honest. And I don't think we're restarting with, Gonzalo Higuain. I don't think we're restarting with Blaise Matuidi. I don't think we're restarting with Lewis Morgan. I don't think we're restarting with Rodolfo Pizarro. I don't think we're restarting with all these people. So I think that in the giant ecosystem of what is Inter Miami is the fact that Paul McDonough, Diego Alonso, because who knows if someone like Pizarro is on our team without Diego Alonso, played a role in the ecosystem of where we are today. And then we're just taking our natural path into where we need to be.
Well, with all due respect, this is where you and I will disagree, because I welcome a restart. I think that last season was tumultuous. I mean, you look at the players we have, the talent we have, the veterans we drafted, and I expect better results. Our fans expect better results. And we were given a short hand last season, given the uncertainties of 2020 and the, stoppage, and MLS is back, then restoppage, like all that. No, like I welcome this complete restructuring, rebuilding, because we have the talent, but I don't think they were being utilized in the capacity they need to be utilized.
Let me ask you this. If you were all about the restart and the restructure, would you give up a Pizarro, a Higuain, and Matuidi in the best contract of MLS history? Would you give that up?
Well, we don't have to give up Matuidi.
No, you do, because if we don't have Paul, who knows if all this happens?
So here's the most curious thing. Matuidi joined because he played with David Beckham at PSG. I think that David Beckham had some say in the acquisitions and persuading, but not the organization as a whole. I don't think he had much say on the day-to-day, but I think David Beckham was key, because Blaise Matuidi would not have signed if he did not play with David Beckham. We're talking about the GOAT. We're talking about the Red Devil himself, the Galactico God, the savior, or what's that movie? With the Guardians of the Galaxy, LA Galaxy. He's the hero of San Siro. He is Paris Fashion Week. He didn't go to PSG to play. He is Paris Fashion Week. It's David Beckham, man. So he had to say, Gonzalo wouldn't come here if it wasn't David Beckham's team. I'm pretty convinced of that. But I feel like, for all my 80s and 90s babies out there, when our powers combine, we are Captain Planet. And I feel like we're now getting the pieces we need to be a serious force in the MLS. And again, it won't be instantaneous. It might take several weeks or a few months, but you got to have faith, because if you don't have faith, then hell, why are you listening to this podcast? We've been through some hardships together.
Well, listen, I mean, the restart button, I'm not a big fan of, but listen, I think it was a great button to push because, damn, we needed a button. We needed a code red, hit that damn thing and let that missile fly off, because we needed something to happen to this team to inject some type of positivity, and that's what it's all about.
I feel like I just converted you. There we go, man.
You didn't convert shit. You just explained to the listeners what Galaxy, the goddamn...
Hey, if you don't like my analogies, listeners, please email us and let us know if you don't like that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut this whole script. I know this is already causing Alex to freak out, but I want to get this news out of the way because we're going to go into the positives, but let's go ahead and knock these negatives out. We did not mention, but Juan Agudelo will no longer be with the team. He is actually signing with the New York Red Bulls. So that brings us down. If you're keeping track from a number standpoint,
Andreas Reyes is actually the one who is signing with the Red Bulls.
Oh, sorry. Oh my goodness. What am I doing?
See, this is what happened when Jay goes off script. He tries to go rogue, and every single episode, y'all.
This is what happens. All right, so Juan Agudelo will no longer be with the team. We do not know where he will land yet, but he will no longer be here. So that brings it down to 10 players no longer on the team. We are +1 with Patrick Segrist, who we covered last episode. So we're up to 21. Now, back to Alex's point. So we mentioned Andres Reyes not being with the team, but we did get an update that he will be joining the New York Red Bulls. We loaned him out to Nacional. We loaned him from Nacional, but we did not exercise his contract option. The Red Bulls did, which kind of, the dude's got speed and he does have talent. If you can develop it, and they're a high pressing team, could be scary. Dude,
it's fine, bro. You're gonna see this guy on highlights for all the wrong reasons. And
you know what?
The reality is that, listen,
he's the yellow card champ, bro.
He might have LJP. It's gonna be a battle all year to see who has the most yellow cards in the entire league. But anyway, he is someone who has great potential. We know that. I mean, listen, he was our starter when he could start, which is probably half the season because he was out due to yellow card allocation, but that's not besides the point. Yeah, you know, it gets tricky out there. But anyway, he's someone who, you know, listen, at the end of the day, we wish the best to. He had a big footprint on our club. You know, he wore that mask, which is pretty wild.
He played with a broken face.
Yeah, like good for him.
He gave his all.
He tried his heart out, which is cool. But honestly, I'm not that broken up over this whole thing. Honestly, I was a little bit more cut up, you know, from Will Tratt just because of, you know, one reason.
R.I.P. Will.
You know, hey, Greek.
We love him. But we weren't keeping him. So glad to hear that he is with a different MLS team and not to knock on the Argentinian league.
Well, no, it's good because we're going to play him.
Well, yeah, we will. And I hope he doesn't stop any goals or anything.
Don't worry.
But, or not the Argentine, but the Colombian team national, rather. But, you know, we did want to give that update. So we wish him the best of the future. But, yeah, Juan Agudelo will not be here. So that brought us down to 20 players on the roster. Segrist brings us up to 21. And then not necessarily a loss, but Jairo Quinteros will not be here any longer. So go ahead and tell us what that situation looks like.
I mean, it looks like, listen, this was a guy that we are not familiar with because, hey, check it out. He wasn't with our club last year. He was actually out on a loan. He will be loaned out again to the same club. So we're going to go ahead and not see Mr. Quinteros with the club this year. He's going to be back. He's a center back, registered 13 overall appearances, 1 goal. Hey, check him out. But anyway, he is going to not be with the club again. We still need to fill our back line, which is crazy because when we started this podcast a while ago, we were like, damn, our back line is pretty fire. And now we got nobody on our back line. We got LGP and who we got? Nico Figal, and that's about it. Until, which is a segue The Super Draft.
Yes. So now that we're here, we wanted to cover that. We want to make sure everyone understands where we are as far as players lost, right? So that's 10 players lost. We acquired Patrick Seagrass, so we're at 21. If you're doing the math,
there are 9 openings.
There are. Is that why you were holding up your hands? I mean, oh gosh. All right. I love that. He was holding up 9 on his fingers. I said 21 and there are 30
Might have been 8.
roster slots. So yeah, we do have 9 openings now that we acquired Patrick Seagrass. Again, we kind of took a little bit of a slow approach on this because we were trying to get our sporting director in place. But today was Thursday, which means that it's a super draft. So Inter Miami did have 2 picks in the first round, 1 in the second round, and I believe 2 in the third round. But we'll get to the I didn't know you could really it's funny because you don't pass on your pick in NFL or NBA, but in the MLS you'll straight up see teams just pass, not even select anybody because they don't even want to gamble on them, which is kind of mind blowing to me. But
maybe, here's a fun thought. Instead of passing on your pick, maybe you should announce a charity and give them recognition and say, hey, listen, we're going to pass on our pick, but, sponsored by, etc. Maybe something else and just pass, right?
You speak a lot about charity donations, but moving on. Oh, that's such a high-pitched laugh you got, buddy. Anyway, so we're going to skip the worst part. All right, here's the deal. Inter Miami passed on their third round picks. We had the round 3 pick 29 and round 3 pick 31. So 83rd and 85th overall. We just scratched and decided not to pick anyone. Moving us up, first round, we had the 10th pick overall. Everyone was thinking we're going to take a center back or fullback. Everyone thought if they weren't going to do that, they'd probably take a CDM.
Not us.
Not this club. No. Instead, we just come out swinging with a forward out of Indiana University, none other than Josh Penn himself. 22 games played, 6 goals, 2 assists. Not incredibly impressive, but not bad either. He's a former U.S. Youth International, but it will be interesting to see. Where does Josh Penn fit into the equation? Because we have Gonzalo. We have Julian Carranza.
You know where he'd fit?
We have Robbie Robinson.
He'd fit right where Daryl D.
That's a dick move. You're going to do that right now? Wow. So, yeah, obviously, we're still a little hurt that we could have had Daryl DK with our number 1 overall pick, but we took Robbie Robinson.
Or number 3.
But we took Dylan Nealis. But hey, Orlando's having a blast.
Super pumped out Dylan.
I like Dylan Nealis
I like
a
Dylan
lot,
too.
so not gonna knock that.
I like Robbie too. Just Robbie smile once in a while.
Robbie, just look happy.
Look happy, man.
But I don't. It's so we tried to do this last season. It's so hard to even analyze super draft picks because you never know. Some people are great, some people aren't. He looks like he definitely has some skill. Again, played at University of Indiana. We're talking total 22 games played, 6 goals, 2 assists.
What else is there to say? Josh Penn, welcome to the club. We are super thrilled to have you aboard.
Oh, that seems so loud. I'm sorry if I blew people's eardrums out.
That's all right. You just drove a few people off the side of the road, but it's cool. But Josh, welcome to the club. And there was a second pick in our first round draft. Jay.
One more thing on Josh, though, is that there is plenty of the goal scoring shares to go around. So go ahead and get you somebody.
Go ahead and get you some, dude. There's about 19 goals that are free for you right there, bro.
All right, now.
Big news. This is big.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
Now,
you saw me straighten up.
I know. Let me set you up here, dude. But this is big news. This is big news for Jay and only Jay. There was a Kentucky player that was drafted in the 26th pick. And Jay,
all right, first off, he's from the University of Kentucky,
which is a little different than Louisville.
He's not from U of L. He's not a Cardinal. All right, but I will,
in the same area.
I will find
for you of
the place in my heart
who don't know where Louisville is. It's Kentucky.
Yeah, Louisville and Lexington are literally like 50 minutes apart from each other. It's a bloody rivalry compared to, UF or FSU Miami. God, I can't wait to add this war chant in here. Yeah, it is a bitter rivalry, and I am a U of L fan, so I by creed have to hate everyone from UK. But I'm going to make one exception, and I'm talking about our first round pick, 26th overall in the first round. His name is Aime, Aime. I could be butchering that. I'll get better at that. I promise. Aime Mabika. And he is a defender, which we needed. Like, we were all kind of shocked that we didn't take a defender with our first pick. But he's a defender, played for UK. The very interesting fact to know about this player is he is 6'6". He is a statue of a player. He is not super stocky nor slow. He is pretty, athletically built for the pitch, and I think that he will be able to fill out even more as his professional career goes on. But we're talking about an absolute monster of a defender who also scored 2 goals last season. So, he can even score. He will be there to 6'6", jump up and head balls. How tall is LGP for reference?
He's definitely not 6'6", but the fact that for listeners out there, the funniest note was created.
He's 6 feet.
Under
He's
this
6
guy.
feet. So we're talking 6 inches on probably our best defender.
Jay has 6'6", semicolon, he big.
He big. He is very big. He's a physical presence in the back. We want to talk about accolades. This dude has won some accolades. So bear with me for a second, because the SEC only has 2 male soccer programs. So I guess they're technically in the Conference USA. So 2020 Redshirt Senior started all 6 fall matches.
That's it.
No. These are our attempts. So here we go. So I'm getting to the recognitions. He was named the CUSA Player of the Year and CUSA Co-Defensive MVP. Named the United Soccer Coaches All Southeast Region First Team, All CUSA First Team, CUSA All Tournament Team, United Soccer Coaches Scholar All American First Team, United Soccer Coaches Scholar All South Region First Team, CUSA Commissioners Honor Roll and Fall SEC Academic Honor Roll, CUSA Preseason Defensive Player of the Year, which will be prior to the season, named to Mac Herman Trophy Watch list, and CUSA Preseason Team prior to season. He was the team captain, started all 21 matches, played 1,887 matches, second among UK players, and scored 3 goals. This guy has a lot of potential, and I'll tell you what, if Christian McCoon can get to his full potential, and we have Mabika as well, that could be a serious threat.
Which brings us to our second round pick, 10th pick in the second round. For you mathematicians out there, that is pick number 37, Mr. Joseph Hafferty, out of Oregon State, Beavertown defender, y'all.
Beavertown Central.
Gotta love those air horns.
We have them now, so we're going to use them. We talk about this guy overall. It's difficult to really be able to analyze too much because not everyone has like a thorough highlight tape out of college, right? But just looking off statistics, he played in 53 games. He started 50 of those games. He has 2 goals, 5 assists. Looks to be a pretty decent defender. I hope between him and Mabika, we do have one serious player. But it's really tough to say off some of these because there's just not enough evidence to analyze or digest. It's going to be, even if you did have a great tape, that doesn't mean you translate well into the MLS. But that's the three that we pick. We got Josh Penn, Aime Mabika, and Joseph Hafferty, which he goes by Joe Hafferty. And again, we passed on our third round picks, which was the round 3 pick 29 and pick 31, which would be the 83rd and 85th overall. Straight out passed on those. Now, if we're going to deduct real quick here, quick maths, lost 10 players, we're at 20. We acquired Patrick Seegers, we're at 21. We've got Josh Penn, 22, Mabika, 23, and Joe Hafferty as 24. Now, you like to honestly point out a lot that doesn't mean that they're signed to the team. Mm-hmm. Okay, fair point. But we're probably looking at 23, 24 players on the roster right now. You know, I could see a situation where maybe Hafferty gets loaned out, or Mabika gets loaned out, or Penn gets loaned out to Fort Lauderdale CF. But we're probably, looking at 6 to 7 more acquisitions that have to happen now that we haven't been making. But again, we've been waiting for Chris Henderson, waiting for Phil Neville. So now we're going to be in this spot where we're going to start acquiring players. My question to you is, who are you most excited about of those 3 players that we drafted?
Fair question, Jay. Fair question. I guess that has all of Inter Miami sitting at the edge of their seats right now. And my answer is honestly no one here, bud. I'm not overly thrilled with anyone that we picked up for a few reasons. One is that, I'm a little surprised that Josh Penn was our first overall pick, which was our number 10th slot in the Super Draft. I'm curious, number one, is because I thought we were going defensive back all day, every day on this pick. And to pick Josh Penn, who,
center back, bud.
Yes, that too. And, to have Josh Penn a part of the club who, didn't really kind of raise too many eyebrows, but did pretty good at Indiana University. Not going to knock the guy.
They called him a first round, a striker. So we'll see.
And listen, we drafted Robbie Robinson in our first, overall draft pick last year, and we saw how that worked out. So only time will tell to depend on how much of an influence these players will have on our club. But I thought that was a reflection of one point, totally, Jay, and that was the fact of Christian Makoun's development. I felt that with the fact of Andres Reyes and Ben Sweat leaving the club, that was going to leave a spot for the beast, for Christian Makoun to step up into that senior role. And to be real with you, dude, I don't know if Mabika is going to start with our club day one. I really don't imagine so. I think he's going to play a little bit more of a Jerome Kiesewetter role, which is, drop down to the USL, get some playing time, get some professional minutes underneath your belt, understand the game a little bit more and try and step up into that senior role and have a lot more of a heavier influence. And what I really look to with these draft picks is really looking at, Chris Henderson. Listen, he had his footprint on this draft. Paul McDonough is no longer a part of the formula. It is now David Beckham and Chris Henderson show. So he must have drafted this guy for some reason. And I'm curious to see how that thing all unfolds. But, to sit here and say that, Mabika is a day one starter, I don't think that's the case. I think that we have slots to fill on our roster, and obviously with your Lewis's, your Radulfos, your Higuains, and Pele Messi's and folks like that. Your front line, your attack is stacked, right? We got to focus on our back line, which is kind of drawing the concern with our fan group right now.
Well, number one, I don't like how you did our boy Jerome Kiesewetter there, buddy. I would say he would take the Christian Makoun route and go to the Fort Lauderdale CF there, not necessarily crushing our boy Jerome, who we love. But yeah, no, I don't think it's going to be a day one starter. I think he will take a little bit of development. But again, 6'6", I think he'll be Lewis Morgan's favorite target. When he does become a starter, I mean, he'll have the ability to head over.
Which is a good point, Jay.
Basically everyone on the field. You
may see him at the end of matches, just for that simple point, right? If we're tied 1-1.
I'd like to see him take on the Dylan Nealis role where you come in at the end of the match.
Yes,
right?
I like that, right? So, Dylan popped in every minute. It seemed like 72 or like 68 or 74, something like that, right? That gives you a big target for when Lewis is launching off those beautiful corner kicks to hit someone who has mass.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And, I love to disagree with you a lot of times, get you riled up, but no, you hit the nail on the head. And I agree with you that, and no shade to Josh Penn. I hope you are a stud and can make an impact, but I think most of our entire fan base was expecting a defensive option in that first round pick, and we went with a forward. So I would like to thank, either Chris Henderson or Jorge Mas or David Beckham saw something in him to think where he maybe could, maybe he's a forward, but can play as a winger. Like, I just don't see how he fits in with, we have to start Gonzalo. He's our guy, right? And until he's not, if we're going to pay that money, he's the starter.
I don't know if he even jumps ahead of Robbie, which brings me question marks to what is he doing in camp right now? Like, this is the first overall pick. We passed on a lot of talent last year to grab this guy as our first overall draft pick. I'm questioning, is this going to be a year that he steps in? Is he going to be a starter this year? It's going to be super hard with the talent that we have in the front. But these are all questions that we're going to have to dive into over the course of the season.
Yeah, no, it's going to take some time, but I'll tell you what, if Inter Miami fans have anything, I'll tell you what, it's a whole lot of patience. So we'll see how this all develops. I mean, again, this is kind of all initial speculation. We can't really, hold too much weight to any of this, but let's go ahead and move on.
Well, one thing before, big shout out to the Extra Time crew. They did a great job. I think they did a pretty solid job on all their productions. I mean, shit, they made Colorado and Cincinnati FC look good. I mean, shoot, the production was on point. Listen, we are all in COVID, quarantine, etc. I hope everyone got the chance to enjoy the Super Draft like Jay and myself from their office, from their home, wherever everybody was watching that. I hope it was an enjoyable time for all.
If we had MLS production support, we would be phenomenal as well, bud. But we have a 3.5-year-old as our camera guy, and he is his hands are very unsteady.
Well, he's asleep.
He is asleep. So we will see how these Super Draft picks work out. We do have high ambitions, but also a lot of questions. Well, let's get into the fun part of this show. In our second year, we're going to do the same thing we did in our first year. We're going to reach out to the supporters groups, talk to them about the previous season, this season, what's going on, what to expect. So we're going to kick it off with the Siege. Who are we having on, bud?
We are having Max Ramos, Andy, and Nico, who will be joining us from the Siege supporters group. This is a super exciting short mini podcast series that Jay and I are thrilled to, bring you annually. We'd love to check in on these guys. Max from the pod, but he's invited a few of his friends. So, Jay, let's go ahead and check it out, bud.
Let's get to it. Welcome, everybody, to the second round of our, now annual supporters group. We'll call it catch-up now, not even introduction. We're blessed to be speaking with the Siege today. We have a longtime friend of the podcast, Mr. Max Ramos, who was recently promoted to president of the club, which is pretty badass, if I do say myself. And then he brought along some of his cohorts, some of his goons, whatever you want to call him. We got Nico Abad, who is the head of creative, and Andy Loretta, which is the head of Little Havana cohort. So, guys, first off, how are you doing today? And then tell us a little bit more about your position so we can get to understand all this.
Hey, guys, I'm glad to be back. I'm really excited for the new year and the new season.
We're likewise, brother. We're glad to have you back, and we're glad to have soccer right around the corner.
Yep, and that's Max. You probably recognize his voice on, but go ahead and introduce yourself, guys, so they can try and identify the voice as we go through these conversations.
Yeah, cool. So I'm Nico Abad. I'm head of creative over at the Siege. Basically, what that is I try and maintain a certain aesthetic amongst the supporter group. So visually, like Instagram, Twitter, all that. So basically, yeah.
Awesome. And then Andy, tell us about what being the head of Little Havana cohort is all about.
That's an important title right there,
like
man.
a really interesting position.
Right. It's a big deal. Yeah.
You seem super stoked about it, bro.
Yeah, no, it's all good, man. I mean, if there's a part of town in, Miami that's where we're trying to promote the team and recruit people to be part of the group, It's right here in the middle of Miami, in Little Havana and Shenandoah, where Cayocho is, and Coral. So that's my role. And
so what does cohort
thanks for having
entail?
us
Is
on.
that like the enforcer, the promoter?
No, so what we're trying to do is establish groups in different parts of Dade County and Broward and Palm Beach, all of South Florida. So because it's a pretty big area, having some of these micro groups where you can find a place to go watch the away games, whether that's a restaurant or a bar or something like that. That's kind of a neighborhood group. So that's what a cohort is. It's your neighborhood group.
So how many cohorts exist within the Siege?
I would say about 5 or 6. We obviously had like a really big build up and swell before the 2020 season, and then everything kind of went to heck really quickly. So what we're trying to do is probably going to be consolidating everything this year and really reanalyzing that, because obviously the groundswell of support and excitement was, you guys remember, like going into 2020 was ridiculous, and then obviously everything fell apart. So right now what we're trying to do is really focus on like the important areas, like literal areas of South Florida that we can do something for, and really expand our reach, and then also like really expand our game day experience, either away games or at home.
For sure. And that's important too, because obviously with COVID hitting, the game day experience is different, right? We can't tailgate, unfortunately those almost, we feel like sin words to us over here, but tailgating isn't really a thing. I know that we met up with you at Extreme Action Sports Park a few times before a few matches, which was pretty cool. But obviously the dynamic of the whole thing changes for a bit. And I guess Max, Nico, Andy, where are you guys right now on member? I guess how many members are you guys up to? I guess worldwide, because not only is it in South Florida, this thing's worldwide, baby.
I can tell you guys like around 350 around the world, like paid memberships or signups. And of active members, we have like a solid core of 50, 50 people who like really are ingrained in the Siege, ingrained into the team, and really love like just the everyday stuff, like what happened today with the Super Draft and the things that like Nico releases, or interest in what Andy's doing in Little Havana. Like we got a solid core, like 50 people that we can count on.
Fantastic. I mean, hey, listen, that's all you really need. That's all you really need to get things going. And, I'd be curious, this is probably more of a question for, Nico heading up the head of creative, but I mean, what types of, things have been the Siege working on this off season? Is it more expansion, merchandise, clothing, things like that, or kind of what have you guys been a focus on over the last, few months?
Oh God. Well, as far as merchandising goes, that's one of those things that, like, unfortunately did get kind of put completely on the back burner because of COVID-19. Nobody's going to be spending their extra petty cash on us, So we're waiting for this all to get rolling, to start getting more shirts, getting more hats, scarves, whatever you do. But I don't know, man. Creative wise, it's been rough. It really has. Like all we've really been able to do is the posts on Instagram, the posts on Twitter, Facebook, trying to post cohesive stories of the few times we actually can get out to the game or get out to the bar together. And yeah, that's practically about all that's been able to be done. Obviously, moving forward, there are, especially now that one could try and say that we're nearing the end of the pandemic, now is when creative really has to like start pushing hard for the recruitment, posts on everywhere, just like ads maybe, especially merchandising. Merchandising is a massive thing for most outsiders. So, but otherwise, yeah, it's really been on a back burner, to be honest. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, social media, strategy or advertising strategy is always important when you're trying to grow really anything nowadays. I mean, that's how you're going to get the most reach. And, this whole year has been just a whirlwind, right? Or the past year, rather, 2020. I mean, so many strange circumstances that the organization, the club went through. And then of course that affects all the supporters groups, because that also scraps a lot of the plans that you had for that season. So what was it like trying to navigate those treacherous waters for the first season? I mean, how was that for you guys? What was that like? I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of stress, a lot of headaches, but how did you guys kind of find, a silver lining in that first season?
I'll let Andy answer this, because I think him being a dad, it makes it more poignant, to be honest.
Shout out to the dads.
Yeah, well, great question, because we were sitting there all ready to go. The first home game of the season, and then that got canceled, and then the season got postponed and everything, and
like 2 days
we
before
had
the
to
game,
just kind of make it through. Yeah, and then we lost 3 months, 4 months, whatever it was, and then when there was finally a chance to actually go to some games, I thought it made it even cooler. It wasn't the full experience that we expected, where we wanted to go into a stadium that was packed with people, really loud, especially the supporter section and stuff. But we took those little like moments and just said, this is cool. We're here. We're doing this, and it's going to be better, next year. I'm kind of surprised they were able to, MLS and the team were able to kind of make it through the whole season the way that it ended up happening. Given everything that was going on, I think it's almost kind of miraculous. And this next season, we can look at it as almost kind of like a do-over. You get to kind of start over again. And it's not obviously expansion year, but get to kind of start, and we've got some cool pieces already on the roster, and so it's really looking to the future, especially a lot of things to start to come back together when people can get back together, because that's kind of what the whole group is all about anyway, being together. And it's hard, no matter how good you are with social media or being on WhatsApp or whatever in group chats. It's just not the same.
You're right. It's La Familia for a reason, and it's one family, right? I think that's what it means. But no,
it means the family. But you're close.
Hey, give me a little bit of
We're working on
here,
his native tongue.
But no, you're absolutely right. Right. This has been a season last year that has been like any other in any sport in the world, in the history of Earth. I can't even say America, right? Earth, because of COVID, right? So I guess kind of like being on the creative side and knowing that, some of these projects that were stalled out, what are some plans, for people to look forward to if they wanted to come out and meet the Siege? Where are going to be some of your pre-season, gatherings? Where can they meet you? Where can they, connect with you? All that good stuff. What do you guys got going on?
Well, I can tell you one thing that we want to start doing. So a new bar that we're going to probably be running talking shop is Fritz and Franz in Coral Gables. We've been looking for like a really legit soccer spot, a football spot in Miami, and we found one in Fritz and Franz, so we're really excited about that. And then for games itself, we made a decision. Obviously, you guys were extreme with us. We're thinking that we need to be closer to home, literally. We want to start actually like tailgating or figuring out some sort of tailgating arrangement that we can do so that we can be as much part of the game day buzz as possible. Like Extreme was really, really good to us. Obviously, it had a great parking and everything, but it still felt a little bit like outside of the electricity of a game day. And I'm sure Andy and Nico can attest to that. And not to say that they weren't great to us, they have been. But we really, really want to be part of the game day experience with the other supporter groups and fans.
No, I mean, of course, why would that not be the goal? Increase your guys' presence. And like, we honestly had a blast with you guys, coming out to the few events that we did with you. So, I'm sure that it'd be hard pressed for any true fan of this club to have a bad time really with any supporters groups. But Andy, tell me what it's like, being head of Little Havana, right?
That's some big shoes to fill, man. You're talking about Rooster Park, Domino, like, come on.
All right, Alex, what's you in? We get it. I haven't added the FSU war chant on the soundboard yet, but it's definitely coming. And every time he talks about Miami, I'm going to shut him up real quick. But, what's it like trying to organize supporters in that part of town when it is a decent commute to this stadium up in Fort Lauderdale? What were some of the challenges that you've incurred or that you've kind of seen?
Yeah, well, I mean, really the supporters group, when I kind of came around, the supporters group was already meeting up at American Social in Brickell, which is a good spot for the central part of town of Miami.
It's a great spot. Great spot.
Yeah, where you kind of go into Little Havana and you go into the neighborhoods around there. We were just starting to kind of scout out some places that would be cool neighborhoods. You really want to get a neighborhood bar or a restaurant with that's hanging the flag, right? That people can walk into and the game is on, and that's what we were really trying to do. And COVID just threw a lot of cold water on all of that right away. So we have to go back and start to re-engage when the time is right and it's, people are feeling safer to kind of go out and gather like that. In the meantime, to go up to Fort Lauderdale, because driving up there takes a little while from where I'm at. But
especially
the idea
like
is
the
that
Bright Line
new
being
stadium's
shut
going to
down
be
too.
Right. Yeah, and it's the Fort Lauderdale site. It's a great stadium. They did a really good job putting it together so quickly too. But the real dream is Freedom Park when they put that, hopefully when they put that in, closer into Miami. And I think that's where you're also going to start to get more of the groundswell support in Dade. I mean, it kind of, people like Nico that live in Palm Beach or in Broward, I know it's not, it kind of starts to take away from them a little bit. But
I mean, that is a very fair point.
Nice big fat stadium too.
Yeah, and when Freedom Park occurs, well, we might have to relocate down to Miami or somewhere closer because we're both up here in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, it might be 2032 when it happens, but
at this rate, yeah, probably. But
in Miami.
Out of curiosity, I mean, the folks right down, in Little Havana, right? Like Cayocho Street, that area, like, are they super bummed that the team isn't actually in Miami? Or I guess like kind of what's the word down in the 305 right now to talk about, why this team's in Fort Lauderdale versus Miami?
There is some confusion there. Yeah, there is.
Yeah, I can attest to that. I've had some friends who are super huge football fans. They even watch Inter Miami on TV. Like that's not even difficult for them. It's just the whole like getting all the way up there. It is a challenge for some people. If you got to think about it, if you're coming from Andy's area, like that's the first drive you'll have to do for a pro sporting event in South Florida. And obviously with COVID hitting, that's another reason. And I'm not giving excuses to people not going, but it's a completely understandable situation for someone to not want to go to a game right now. And I personally think that the fact that a lot of the games were such limited capacity and all that, like I think all in all, like that's why I'm feeling like this year's going to be really like our first year because it's going to feel like a start to finish expansion year, while last year was really just a really extensive preseason.
It was, but to look at the bright side, the lines to get a beer weren't too long.
No, that was fantastic.
So I did enjoy that aspect, but it's going to be a much more
positive, Jay. I like it.
But awesome.
Can I just say being able to park?
Not that well though, because you still have to go through the dirt path.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, like your guys' home bar in Miami is American Social. I will shout out American Social. Love them to death. It's an FSU bar. One of my dear friends, Brandon Bastos, is the GM. So if you go in there, ask for Brandon Bastos, tell him Jay Kinkton sent you so he can overcharge you.
What about Ball and Chain?
What is Ball and
Chain? That place is still kind of closed down.
No way.
Yeah, it's closed down still.
Oh, man.
Yeah. There's another place in Little Havana that it's a Venezuelan craft beer / comfort food place called Educo's.
All right.
That was going to be one of our cohort spots, and of course that right when COVID hit and lockdowns happened, it's like I said, it just kind of put the kibosh on that. But they're big time. They're also FSU, supporters.
Go Noles.
Which is why Max likes it. So
I mean, that sounds delicious.
Yeah,
It's not
I'm
the
sad I
only
can't experience
reason, but it helps.
And they got good
Max,
also.
it can be the only reason. Don't worry. It can be. We can sit here. We can talk about Florida State and how great Florida State is, and just make Alex sit here and grime.
Please don't.
You're in Miami territory, bruh.
Uh-huh.
Please don't.
All right. Well, moving forward. So obviously,
but I'm not
If
gonna
we make
lie.
Nico any more uncomfortable, he'll just walk out.
What is he? A
Is
Georgia
he-
Tech guy?
is Nico
He's probably
Miami?
a Florida guy, isn't he? A Florida guy, huh?
Nico's just not a college football guy.
he's a FGSU, Dunk City.
Anyway, ball and chain. You really broke my heart on this, though, guys. I have spent
Shut up. No one cares.
many years there one night.
Shout out to all of our Miami fans. You still matter. But how do you? How do you?
Don't worry, Canes. We'll
There's
have our
been
day.
a lot of. There's. I'm just gonna move forward. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of recent moves that the club has made. You know, obviously McDonough's departure, Alonso out, then Alonso not out, kind of in, not sure if he's in.
But
then
he's out.
rumors start. Now he's out.
Kind of like an
we
ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, and then sure. And then we get Neville in, Chris Henderson, who we think is going to be a very valuable asset. But
We're more excited, honestly. Like Henderson, when he was signed amongst the siege, like that was a more exciting announcement because like those of us who watch MLS and know how Seattle's been for the last few years, we're very excited about that. While Neville, like great, like obviously very famous player, friend of Beckham's, all that. It's more of a like we're all excited for him. We think he can be good, but it's more of a wait and see. While Henderson is a proven commodity, and that was like the biggest excitement for this year was him.
now let's look at like David Beckham saying he's going to take a much more active approach this season, and he was not really able to last year unless it was via phone call or Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever he's using. But now he can get into the United States finally, and he's here, and you see him out there with the academy players, you know, having fun, but also probably providing very valuable information. I mean, where do you see the potential of this club now that David's back in town, and this seems to be, I know he's part owner of, you know, another team, but this seems to be kind of where they've referenced him, you know, in the soccer sphere right now, in the football sphere right now. You know, what are your thoughts on David Beckham stepping in and it looks like he's already making an impact with Phil, but where do you guys see the potential right now over the next season or two with David Beckham being at the helm? Let's not all jump at once. Let's
Calm
not
down.
all jump at once.
Put your pants back on.
Nico, what are your thoughts?
Loaded question. First off, shout out Beckham.
Hey.
That's all of our baby daddies. Okay.
I'm gonna isolate that clip. That might go on the soundboard.
Hearing, well, obviously it was so messed up him not being able to like be more active last season, but you know, shit happens. But no, I'm very excited because I've always felt, even from when I was watching him younger, I know he was hot-headed and all that, but I always felt like Beckham had the intelligence, and him having been at LA Galaxy when they did win trophy, I don't know if that's plural or not, but I do remember one trophy at least. I feel like he himself, I can't, like, obviously the sporting directors know and everything, but he himself knows what should be happening to a winning MLS side. So maybe the impact that obviously he brings in Phil Neville, he brings in Mr. Chris, but I feel like he knowingly is aware of what is needed. So I think I'm really grateful for that, actually.
What do you think about it, like his pool though, right? So like outside of like front office, or you know, we're talking like C-level individuals or director level individuals or even managers, right? Strictly speaking, like player wise, you know, without Beckham, do you think we get Higuain? Do you think we get Matuidi? Matuidi probably the biggest robbery of the entire league in its history as far as the deal we got him on. I think we have such a bright future if he spends close to 50% of his time, if not the majority, in Miami, the type of players that he can bring in just off his aura and legend.
Yeah. What's interesting to me, I always thought that would be a massive thing, right? Like players, young kids are going to want to play in Miami for Beckham. But what's interesting for me is that, like, I mean, last year, obviously, he couldn't be around, but nobody really, at least nobody on the roster that I can, like, immediately think of really, like, made it seem that they only came for Becks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's even, and I love, it's like a meme amongst some Siege supporters. There's a certain, I won't name him, but there's a certain young player on our team who publicly was featured with Beckham, and he acts like he doesn't care. Maybe that's not the right mentality, but it was interesting to see that, oh shit, maybe Beckham doesn't have the pull that everyone anticipated. But like, why? In that case, why would my Tweety, Higuain, even Pizarro come? So maybe I don't know. I try and think that like the team is more than Beck, but obviously like you guys are right. Beckham, the name, like everyone is going to associate Inter Miami with David Beckham. Like that's practically impossible.
Definitely. I mean, like, listen, Jorge Mas, Chris Henderson, Phil Neville, like nobody's name compares to David Beckham. That's just the reality of it, right? And that's kind of our like secret sauce in this whole formula is the fact that we have such. That's like having Michael Jordan as your general manager, which I know the
you don't
Hornets
want
has
that.
a word. I don't think that's actually the right play right there. But sorry guys. But anyway, like I was saying, like even Michael Jordan, though, has those conversations and that clout. When he walks into the room or when he gives someone a call, that is a recognizable name that people know the name of David Beckham. So, to your point, he's instrumental in what he's done to this point. I don't think we get an Higuain or a Matuidi on, to Jay's actual point is, on that deal that we got or a Pizarro, which I know is more of Diego's guy. But, I got to imagine there's more in store for us, especially with Phil teaming up with his own guy, David Beckham. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, it's the market, it's Miami, it's Beckham. And, we're fortunate that he's a part of it. So that it's not just some, nondescript MLS team that's in the middle of America somewhere.
Texas, you can say it, like Austin, right? Like Austin is going to have a
they have
They got
Why throw shade on Texas?
because I'm going to start doing it.
You could throw shade on like Nebraska.
No, I'm going to throw it on Texas.
I can make fun of Nashville all day. I can make fun of Nashville all day if you guys want.
All right, what's your best joke, Max?
I'm sorry, but how many times do you need to play a guitar before we get it? Your country down or whatever. When I went to the playoff game, there's like 7 different moments of guitar playing for no exact reason. It has no purpose.
have you been through their airport? There's literally a guitar showcase.
No. At a Nashville game, there's a guitar when they're starting.
Yeah.
There's a guitar when they're announcing players. There's a different guitar when like they're announcing the opposition. There's another guitar when they're about to kick off the game. There's a guitar when they're doing the national anthem. There's a guitar when they score, and there's a guitar when they win. And it's a different guitar every single time. Wow,
we get it.
So original.
So they don't have conga drums. They don't have the cowbell. They don't have.
You can never have too much cowbell. I'm just happy Vuvuzelas haven't taken over in America, but
God no.
But tell us about. So, do you guys have anything planned over the next few weeks, couple months, as far as something going on where individuals who are looking to learn more about the Siege could come out and meet you guys face to face, put a face to the name, have some fun, throw back some drinks, unless you're God-fearing Christian, but most of us aren't. So, what's going on with you guys?
Or if you have gout, get a water.
If you've gout, get a water.
I think Mr. President is best to answer that.
As we get closer to the beginning of the season, which we are not sure when that is yet, we will be announcing meetups in Miami-Dade and in Broward because a lot of our members are in the Palm Beach Broward area, like Nico, and we always want, like, even though the club is Inter Miami, obviously the stadium's in Broward. we want to give love to both areas because they're both important. Because in the end, it's all one market. Inter Miami is South Florida's team, and we want to make sure that South Florida feels involved at all points. So we're going to try to get that going, especially as we get closer to the season. And no one here knows when that's beginning. Obviously, the whole thing with the MLS players doing in today, like their little issue with the league, it's all kind of up in the air. But we're excited for this year. We're excited for a full schedule, hopefully without any stops of any kind. Hopefully not of the human kind, like a labor stoppage. But we will be announcing something soon, and we will obviously let everybody know via our social media channels about that.
Well, keep us posted, and we will share that news with all the listeners.
Absolutely. And if you guys do want to connect with the Siege, like we do urge you to do, go ahead and connect with them on Twitter. That is at Siege Miami, or go ahead and check out their website, siegemiami.com. They keep it real simple, just like the Inter Miami podcast. But Max, Nico, Andy, thank you so much for joining us on the second round of the supporters group series with the Siege. Is there any last words that you gentlemen would like to share with the listeners?
I'm gonna let Nico say that.
Awesome. I was going to say something anyway. Don't be afraid if you see us having something. Don't be afraid to come out. Nico has horrible peer pressure problems, and he usually buys rounds of shots for everybody anyway.
Hey.
So go ahead and come on out.
He does. It's fun.
Hey, you're my guy, Nico.
Yo.
Hey, Nico, if you could email me like your LinkedIn or Facebook profile so I can get a good look at your face, I'll see you soon, bud.
Oh no. If you want to know what Nico looks like, just look up the reggaeton star Faruco, and that's Nico. You're welcome.
Yeah, so we're not too keen on the Spanish spelling, so you're gonna have to break that down for me so I can Google images right now.
I will text it to you.
That's just a text message afterward, fellas.
Oh my God.
Well, be good. We appreciate you guys coming on the show. We will see you out there soon, as always. But thank you so much again. Max Ramos, El Presidente, Nico Abad, head of creative, Andy Loretta, the head of Little Havana cohort.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Have a good one, fellas. Be good. Well, there you have it, folks. Obviously, got to drop a folks after every interview. Such a pleasure to have Max, Andy, Nico on the podcast. Check out the Siege. If you're interested in joining a supporter group, go out, see their events, man. You're not going to have a bad time with the Siege or with any supporters groups. We will get to the 3 other supporters groups in the sequential weeks as well. But thank you so much, guys, for coming on.
Definitely not a bad time with the Siege. Thank everyone for joining in. If you want to go ahead and check them out, everybody said so. Go ahead and reach out, do your thing. But this leads us to some big news, Jay. This is about the Inter controversy.
Something that's been lingering over our heads for way too long. Something lingering over all your closets because you don't even know if you could wear your shirt out without being arrested by the Italian police.
Yeah, if you're looking at yourself in the mirror, not knowing what's going on, well, that's on you.
That's on you. Don't get arrested by the Italian police.
People are like, oh shit, they found out.
Oh, his shirt says Inter. We must arrest him.
Listen, Jay is talking about the Inter controversy. This has been a hot topic from here to Italy.
It's been the most dull topic that has to be done legally.
It's crazy.
It's not exciting. There's not going to be a Netflix documentary on it.
I'm not going to hit you with some Tiger Woods stuff right now. Like, there's no cliffhanger.
The Tiger documentary was
Fire, y'all. Like, if you have HBO, watch it. If you don't have HBO, go get HBO and watch it. But it was great.
VPNs. You can pirate that on the internet and not get caught. VPNs, kids.
Anyway, Jay is an internet pirate, as we've heard before. But listen, the controversy over this whole Inter Miami talk, inner controversy stuff, this is all about the word Inter. Inter Milan is basically claiming that it's synonymous with their club, and it should not be commercialized. But the MLS is basically claiming that the fact that they own the U.S. trademark of Inter Miami. So now imagine this, right? Like everybody's sitting around the dinner table, you know, eating, drinking, doing the whole thing. MLS is saying, hey, you know, the U.S. trademark of Inter Miami is ours. And Inter Milan is saying, hey, the U.S. trademark for Inter is ours. And so everybody's looking at each other like, what in the hell are you talking about? You know, you want us to be the Miami Herons or something? Like, it doesn't matter with what this crap is going on. We're not going to change our name from the Inter Miami Herons. This is not going to happen. The MLS already has ownership of that trademark, and Inter Milan, that's not even the real club name. And it seems like that they're going through logo and different team name change in this year anyway.
Well, that's a ceremonial change, like I think it's like 200 years or 150 years, whatever. So that is just for the year.
It's not going to be their name or the logo.
But continue. No, for a year, then they're going back to it. It's like just a 1 year. It's like how, like during
a hall pass.
Yeah, it was like during like how what was it, like Father's Day or Mother's Day? Inter Miami did like the Herons apart, with one being smaller, but like for social distancing. Remember when they moved the Herons apart on the logo? It's like one of those things. They will be back to Inter Milan in 2022. Yeah, 2022. I lost track of time. Time is a construct, by the way. I'm just gonna let you know.
We're not gonna get into that right now. All right, listen, that's for a different day. But it's a lot of crap going on right now, y'all. I don't think Inter Miami, as the term Inter Miami, is in jeopardy right now. It doesn't seem so. It seems like the focus is on the word Inter, because Inter Milan is claiming that is synonymous with their club. But we shall see how that unplays, just like the most of everything that happens along life. But we will keep everybody posted.
Sounds like we Gucci.
Sounds like we Gucci, but who knows, man?
That's a stab in the wound because that's an Italian designer.
Ooh,
that's deep.
Wow, that is deep.
Deep joke, deep cut.
Very much, sir. But I'll go ahead and give you a deeper cut, Jay. David Norman Jr. is unsigned right now.
You say unsigned, but the article I read was top Canadian free agents. And that sounds so much better than unsigned. It really does. And he was on that list.
Listen, I'm confused because I thought we were saving David last year for this year.
We're saving David for the MLS Cup penalty kick.
Well, alongside David Norman Jr., which was the recipient of the coveted David Norman Jr. Sponsorship Award of 2020, is still on the block.
So it's weird because we can't say they're cut, but they're not signed. So
they're on the block.
They're like in limbo.
Yeah, him.
So we can't count them against the roster cap or for it. You know, and also Federico Higuain. And I'm going to propose a tough question to you. Okay? Because maybe one person's stats happen to be much better than the next person's. But if you were going to sacrifice one person, would it be David Norman Jr. or Federico Higuain? I'll answer that for you. It's the wrong answer, but it's the right answer in our hearts. And we want David Norman Jr. on this team because we believe in David Norman Jr.
Wait, would you sacrifice Federico over David then?
You know, Federico is a player coach at DC United. Federico is on the skirts of retirement. David Norman Jr. is a young Canadian stud. Have you not seen, I know you have, but if you're a listener and you have not Googled David Norman Sr., Google David Norman Sr., look at that mustache. Tell me if it doesn't command respect and it doesn't command his son to be on our team, because I think it does.
Exactly. That's why I'm sacrificing the GOAT, David Norman Jr.
Wow.
That is a sacrifice.
I don't even know you anymore.
That's fine. Right here.
No.
No? Out?
I'm not giving David
There's
up.
no chance I'm taking a sacrifice of Federico Higuain over David Norman. Does Federico Higuain have his own trophy named after him? I didn't think so.
No, but he definitely likes, he's a super spreader.
Oh. So you're just saying like,
look, we can have both. We can have both is what I'm saying. We can have both of them. They're unsigned. We'll work something out, hopefully. We do love David Norman Jr. on this show.
who you taking, David or Federico?
I'm taking David all day.
All day.
And not even because not even because we love David, because he's just like
No, it's because
just this like, I don't even know the word I'm looking for. He's just
doing
like
something
this,
with your hands.
yeah, I'm doing hand signals, but he is like an extension of
You?
the show, maybe me, the show. He's better hair than me. But if we're talking longevity standpoint, I mean, Federico is like coming up on 40 and David Norman's young as hell. Like I would take David Norman, but these are two to keep a watch on because they haven't fully separated, but they haven't been signed. So we'll see what happens. But
you know who was a close second to Breck Shea in the Flow Award of 2020?
probably David Norman.
You're wrong.
What? Who was it?
Pizarro.
Okay, that has nothing to do with anything we're talking about, so I'm going to move on. Here's some interesting news that probably no one really was paying attention to, but Inter Miami CF Stadium will become the first stadium in the Western Hemisphere with a permanent university campus. The club is partnered with the Global Institute of Sport. The acronym is GIS, not GIS like we know, but GIS, Global Institute of Sport, to open a North American campus at Inter Miami in June 2021, the first ever in the Western Hemisphere. To all of our young kids who have not wasted their life yet, sports business and management degrees will be available at this school. They are, I guess, the parent school is HQ'd in the UK. I guess it's a pretty big deal if you want to get into the management and more hands-on side of sports. But that will bring us to our final topic. I know it's been it's been a really long episode, honestly. But EMLS news. I know everyone's been hanging on to the end of the show for some video game updates, and I'm going to give them to you. So we have IMCF Paps, right? He balled out in the first 2 weeks. He was like 3 spots ahead of the cutoff, right? He was looking great. So day 3 comes out. 1 win against San Jose Quakes. 2 draws, NYCFC and Seattle Sounders, and 1 loss against Austin FC, which Austin FC's players balling out of control. Day 4, 1 draw against FC Cincinnati and 1 loss against Sporting Kansas City. That knocked IMC Pabs below the threshold he needed to continue, so we will not be in the EMLS FIFA League anymore. I know that breaks the heart of a lot of Inter Miami fans. Shout out to you, and we'll see you next season, I guess, Paps.
Do you want to play?
Do you want to do this? No, I'm just kidding, man. But that basically brings us to the end of the show. We don't really have anything else to say. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, you can follow us on basically any social media platform. You can check us out on any podcast platform. We everywhere. We here. I'm Jay Kington. This is my man, Alex Papa George. I'm a little late on the soundtrack and music, but we're going to make it work anyway. And, thank you so much for tuning in.
Like we leave every single episode, y'all.
Every single episode?
Every single one. This is number 50.
Episode. Let's stay tuned to these picks. The
Check
change
them
in the
out.
front office. Big things are coming to the club. It's a rough season, but hell, we get through hurricanes with a smile on our face. You see a hurricane up north and they freak out. We are warriors. We are warriors, and we'll be warriors to the day we die. But as we end every single episode, vamos, Miami.
One love, y'all. Vamos, Miami.